Towards the end of the Metamorphoses, Ovid includes an account of Pythagoras that neatly encapsulates the essence of metamorphosis in an ethical framework and the importance of the concepts relating to reincarnation and ethics. Pythagoras had left Samos, fleeing at once the island and its tyrannical government, and in his hatred of despotism had gone into voluntary exile. In his thoughts he drew near to the gods, far removed though they were in their heavenly homes. And with the eyes of the mind he gazed upon those things which nature has denied to human sight. With unremitting care and thought had made everything clear to him. He imparted his knowledge for all to learn, and taught the silent wondering crowds about the origin of the great universe, the reasons for things, what nature is, and what the gods, whence come the snows, the lightning flash, whether it is Jupiter who thunders, or the winds, splitting the clouds apart, what causes earthquakes, the laws that govern the movement of the stars, and all that is hidden from man's knowledge. He was the first to ban the serving of animal food at our tables, first to express himself in such words as these, wise words indeed, but powerless to convince his hearers. "O my fellow men, do not defile your bodies with sinful foods. We have corn, we have apples, bending down the branches with their weight, and grapes swelling on the vines. There are sweet flavored herbs and vegetables which can be cooked and softened over the fire. Nor are you denied milk or thyme-scented honey. The earth affords a lavish supply of riches, of innocent foods, and offers you banquets that involve no bloodshed or slaughter. Only beasts satisfy their hunger with flesh, and not even all of those, for horses, cattle, and sheep live on grass. But creatures whose nature is wild and fierce, Armenian tigers and raging lions, bears and wolves, delight in butchered food. Alas, what wickedness to swallow flesh into our own flesh, to fatten our greedy bodies by cramming in other bodies, to have one living creature fed by the death of another. In the midst of such wealth as earth, the best of mothers, provides, nothing forsooth satisfies you but to behave like the Cyclops, inflicting sorry wounds with cruel teeth. You cannot appease the hungry cravings of your wicked, gluttonous stomachs, except by destroying some other life. But that ancient age, to which we have given the name of golden, was blessed with fruits plucked from the trees, and crops the earth put forth. Its people did not defile their lips with blood. Then birds flew through the air in safety. The hare wandered fearlessly in the open fields. No fish was hooked because of its own credulity. There were no snares, no fear of treachery, but everywhere peace in full measure. Then someone, setting an unprofitable example, whoever he was, envied the lions their diet, and by swallowing down a meal of flesh into his greedy stomach, took the first steps on the road to crime. It may be that originally the reeking swords were stained with blood from killing wild animals, and I admit that creatures trying to kill us may be killed without involving us in guilt. But that should have been enough. It was as wrong to eat them as it was right to slay them in self-defense. Then wickedness went further. The pig is thought to have been the first victim to meet a well-deserved fate, because it rooted out seeds with its turned-up snout, and destroyed the hope of harvest. Then the goat, they say, was sacrificed at the altars of Bacchus, as a punishment for having gnawed at his vines. Both had themselves to blame. But what did sheep do to merit such a fate? Peaceful flocks, born for the service of man, will bring us sweet milk in their full udders, whose wool provides us with soft garments, who do more for us alive than dead. What have oxen done, animals quite innocent of guile or treachery, harmless and simple, born to work? Thankless indeed was he, and undeserving of the gift of corn, who first had the heart to lift the weight of the curved plough from his beast's neck, and slay the ox who had tilled his fields, bringing down his axe on the work-worn necks of the cattle, with whose help he had so often broken up the hard earth and planted so many crops. Not content with committing such crimes, men have enrolled the very gods as their partners in wickedness, and suppose that the divinities in heaven take pleasure in the slaying of patient bullocks. A victim of outstanding beauty, free from any blemish, whose pleasing looks are its undoing, is set before the altars, decked with garlands and with gold. There it hears, without understanding, the prayers of the priest, and sees the corn it has cultivated sprinkled on its forehead, between its horns. It is struck down, and stains with its blood the knives which it may well have seen beforehand, reflected in the clear water. At once the lungs are torn from its still living breast, that the priest may examine them, and search out the purpose of the gods, revealed therein. And then, so great is man's hunger for forbidden food, you mortals dare to eat that flesh. I beg you, heed my warnings and abstain. Know and understand that when you put the meat of slaughtered oxen in your mouth, the flesh you eat is that of your own laborers. Now, since a god directs my speech, I shall duly follow him who guides, reveal the secrets of my beloved Delphi, and of the heavens themselves, and unlock the oracles of a majestic mind. I shall speak of things of great import, never studied by previous intellects, which have long lain hid. I joy to journey among the stars, high above, to leave the earth in this dull abode, to ride on the clouds and stand on stout Atlas' shoulders, looking down from afar on men as they wander aimlessly, devoid of any guiding principle, to unroll for them the scroll of fate, and cheer their panic and their fear of death, saying, "You people, dismayed by the fear of icy death, why are you terrified by the Styx, by shadows and empty names, the stuff of poets' tales, by the dangers of a world that does not exist? Our bodies, whether destroyed by the flames of the funeral pyre, or by slow decay, do not feel any suffering. You must not think so. Our souls are immortal, and are ever received into new homes, where they live and dwell, when they have left their previous abode. I myself, at the time of the Trojan War, for I remember it well, was Panthus' son, Euphorbus, who once received full in the breast the heavy spear of Menelaus, Atreus' younger son. Quite recently, in the temple of Juno at Argos, Abas' city, I recognized the shield I used to carry on my left arm. All things change, but nothing dies. The spirit wanders hither and thither, taking possession of what limbs it pleases, passing from beasts into human bodies, or again our human spirit passes into beasts, but never at any time does it perish. Like pliant wax, which stamped with new designs does not remain as it was, or keep the same shape, but yet is still itself, so I tell you that the soul is always the same, but incorporates itself in different forms. Therefore, in case family feeling prove less strong than greedy appetite, I warn you, do not drive souls that are akin to yours out of their homes by impious killings. Do not nourish blood with blood. Since I have set sail upon a wide ocean, and spread my canvas to the wind, let me continue further. Nothing is constant in the whole world. Everything is in a state of flux, and comes into being as a transient appearance. Time itself flows on with constant motion, just like a river, for no more than a river can the fleeting hour stand still. As wave is driven on by wave, and itself pursues the one before, so the moments of time at once flee and follow, and are ever new. What was before is left behind, that which was not comes to be, and every minute gives place to another. You see the nights, completed, pass into day. The shining rays of morning succeed the darkness of the night. The color of the sky is not the same, when all things lie warily in the still midnight, as when bright Lucifer emerges on his white steed. It changes again when Aurora, forerunner of the day, gilds the sky she must hand on to Phoebus. The orb of the sun god himself, red in the morning when he rises from beneath the earth, red when he sinks below, shines white in the heights of heaven, because the air is better there, far removed from earth's contagion. Nor can the moon by night retain one and the same shape all the time. She is smaller today than she will be tomorrow if she is waxing, and greater if she wanes. Or again, don't you see the year passing through the succession of 4 seasons, thus imitating our own life? In the early spring it is tender and full of sap like the age of childhood. Then the crops, in shining trim but still delicate, shoot up in the fields, and though they are not yet stout and strong, fill the farmers with joyous hopes. Everything is in flower, the fertile earth gay with brightly colored blossoms, but there is as yet no sturdiness in the leaves. Spring past, the year grows more robust, and moving on into summer, becomes like a strong young adolescent. There is no time hardier than this, none richer, none so hot and fiery. Autumn takes over when the ardor of youth is gone, a season ripe and mellow, and tempered midway between youth and age, with a sprinkling of gray hairs at its temples. Then aged winter comes shivering in, with tottering steps, its hair all gone, or what it has turned white. In the same way our own bodies are always ceaselessly changing, and what we have been, or now are, we shall not be tomorrow. There was a day when we lived in our mother's womb, mere seeds that held the first promise of a human. To these nature applied her hands, skillfully fashioning them. Then, unwilling that our bodies should be tightly cramped and buried inside our mother's swollen shape, she sent us out from our home into the empty air. The baby, first born into the light of day, lies weak and helpless. After that he crawls on all 4s, moving his limbs as animals do, and gradually, on legs as yet trembling and unsteady, stands upright, supporting himself by some convenient prop. Then he becomes strong and swift of foot, passing through the stage of youth till, having lived through the years of middle age also, he slips down the incline of old age, towards the setting of life. Age undermines and destroys the strength of former years. Milon, grown old, weeps to see those arms hanging limp and thin, whose massive knotted muscles once rivaled those of Hercules. Helen weeps too, when she sees herself in the glass, wrinkled with age, and asks herself why she was twice carried off. Time, the devourer, and the jealous years that pass, destroy all things, and nibbling them away, consume them gradually in a lingering death. Even the things which we call elements do not remain constant. Consider the changes that they undergo. The everlasting universe contains 4 elements that give rise to bodies. 2 of these, earth and water, are heavy, and by their own weight sink down, while the other 2, air and fire, which is more rarefied than air itself, are weightless and soar upwards, unless something holds them under. Though these 4 elements are distinct from each other in space, yet they are all derived from one another, and are resolved back again into themselves. Earth is broken up and refined into liquid water. Water, becoming still less substantial, changes into air and wind, and air, too, being already of the finest texture, flashes upwards, when it loses weight, into the fiery atmosphere above. Then the process is reversed, and the elements are restored again in the same order. Fire condenses and thickens into air, air into water, and water under pressure produces earth. Nor does anything retain its own appearance permanently. Every inventive nature continually produces one shape from another. Nothing in the entire universe ever perishes, believe me, but things vary and adopt a new form. The phrase being born is used for beginning to be something different from what you were before, while dying means ceasing to be the same. Though this thing may pass into that, and that into this, yet the sum of things remains unchanged. For my part, considering how the generations of men have passed from the age of gold to that of iron, how often the fortunes of different places have been reversed, I should believe that nothing lasts long under the same form. I have seen what once was solid earth now changed into sea, and lands created out of what once was ocean. Seashells lie far away from ocean's waves, and ancient anchors have been found on mountain tops. What was at one time a level plain has become a valley, thanks to the waters flowing down over it. Mountains have been washed away by floods and leveled into plains. Land that once was marshy has become a barren stretch of arid sand, and thirsty deserts are moist with stagnant pools. In one place nature sends out new springs, in another she blocks existing ones. And rivers may either burst from the ground, disturbed by tremors in the depths of the earth, or they may drain away and sink out of sight. So the Lycus, after being swallowed up in a chasm of the earth, appears again far away, reborn from a new source. The Ericinus too, at one point is sucked down, and flows beneath the ground, to return again as a mighty river in the fields of Argos. The Mysus, they say, ashamed of his source and his original bed, now flows elsewhere as the Caicus. In Sicily too, the Amananos sometimes runs full, churning the sands in his waters, but at other times his springs are checked, his channel dry. Formerly the river Anigrus was used for drinking, but now it pours forth waters no one would wish to touch, since the time when, unless we are to discredit the poets completely, the centaurs used its stream to wash the wounds inflicted by the bow of Hercules, the club-bearer. Again, is it not true that Hypanis, which rises in Scythia's mountains, was once fresh water, and is now tainted with bitter salt? Antissa and Pharos and Tyre too, the city of the Phoenicians, was once surrounded by sea, but not one of them is an island now. In the old days, the inhabitants of Leucas occupied a continuation of the mainland. Now the sea encircles them too. Zancle, too, is said to have been joined on to Italy, till the sea destroyed their common border, and the intervening waves thrust back the lands. If you look for Helice and Burias, once cities of Achaia, you will find them beneath the waters. The sailors still point out the drowned walls of the fallen towns. Near Troezen, where Pythias ruled, is a mound, rising steeply, bare of trees, which was once an absolutely flat plain, but is now a hill. It is a terrible tale how the fierce and violent winds, shut up in their hidden caverns, wished to find some exit for their blasts, and struggled in vain to enjoy the wide expanse of the open sky. There was no chink anywhere in their prison through which their gusts might go. They stretched the earth and made it swell, just as a man blows up a bladder or the skin of a horned goat with his breath. The swelling in the ground remained, and now, hardened by the long passage of years, has the appearance of a high hill. Many instances occur to me, which I have heard and been told, but I shall mention only a few more. Come now, admit that even water gives and takes new forms. At midday the waters of horned Ammon are chill, but at sunset and sunrise they grow warm. It is said that the Atamanians kindle wood by pouring these waters over it, at the season when the moon has dwindled to its smallest crescent. The Cicones have a river that turns to stone the inner organs of those who drink it, and spreads a marble covering over anything it touches. Cratus and Sybaris, too, the latter flowing close to our own country here, gives hair the color of gold or amber. More surprising still, there are some streams which can change not only men's bodies but their characters as well. Who has not heard of Salmacus' loathsome waters, or the Ethiopian lakes? If anyone drinks of these, he either goes mad or falls into a deep, miraculous sleep. A man who quenches his thirst at Clitorius spring shuns wine, and soberly enjoys water by itself. Perhaps this is because there is some property in these waters incompatible with the warmth of wine, though the inhabitants of the place have another explanation. They say that when Amythoon's son cured Proetus' demented daughters of their madness by means of spells and herbs, he threw the charms which had restored the girls' senses into the spring, so that the waters developed a lasting hatred of wine. The Lyncestian river has the opposite effect, for if anyone drinks too much of it, he reels about just as if he had been drinking neat wine. There is a place in Arcadia, too, which people of old called Phenius, whose waters are distrusted because of their double nature. Beware of them at night, for if drunk then, they are harmful. But they do no hurt to those who taste them by day. So lakes and rivers have different properties at different seasons. There was a time when Ortygia was a floating island, but now it is firmly fixed. The Argo feared the Symplegades, rocks which once clashed together in a cloud of spray from the waves they smashed. Now those crags stand immovable, resistant to the winds. Even Etna, glowing with its sulphurous furnaces, will not always be fiery, nor was it always so. For, if its fires are to be explained by the fact that the earth is a living animal, possessed of many air passages that breathe out flames, then, as often as it moves, it can change the channels through which it breathes, putting an end to one set of holes, and opening up another. Or, if swift winds, shut up in the caverns of the mountain, fling together inflammable material, and rock upon rock, till Etna catches fire, owing to their friction, and then when the winds die down, the caverns will be left cold. Again, if it is bitumen that blazes up, or yellow saffron that burns with little smoke, then surely, when, in the long course of time, earth's stocks are exhausted, she will no longer afford a rich abundance of fuel for the flames. Deprived of the sustenance their natural greed demands, they will succumb to hunger, and, starved themselves, will starve their fires. There is a tale that in Palene, in the region beyond the north wind, there are men whose bodies, when they have dipped themselves 9 times in Minerva's pool, acquire a covering of downy feathers. I do not myself believe this, but the Scythian women are said to practice the same magic, achieving their end by sprinkling their limbs with magic drugs. However, if I must add further proof of things already proved, you surely see that when bodies decay, either owing to the passage of time, or when heat has reduced them to a pulp, they turn into little animals. Experience has shown that if you select bulls, kill them, and bury them in a trench, from every part of the rotting carcasses will come bees to sip honey from the flowers. Like the beasts from which they spring, the bees frequent the countryside, are devoted to toil, and are ever working in hope of harvest. A war horse, covered over with earth, produces hornets. If you remove the hollow claws of land crabs and bury the rest in the earth, there will emerge from the buried remains a scorpion with curved and threatening tail. And the farmers know full well that the worms which spin a cocoon of white threads on the leaves, in country places, change into butterflies, the symbol of death. Mud contains germs that produce green frogs. These have no legs when they are first born, but soon acquire limbs suitable for swimming, and to engage them to make long jumps on land as well. The hind legs are longer than the front. When the bear first gives birth to her young, it is not a cub, but merely a lump of flesh, living and nothing more. By her licking, the mother fashions limbs out of this bundle, and reduces it to her own shape. Moreover, you see, don't you, that the larvae of the honey bee, born in the hexagonal cells of the honeycomb, have bodies but no limbs, and only late in life develop feet and wings? Consider Juno's bird, which wears stars on its tail. Think of the eagle that carries Jove's thunderbolt, and Venus' doves, and the whole race of birds. Who would believe that they could come from the inside of an egg, if he did not know that it happened? Some people also believe that when a human body is shut up in the tomb, and its backbone rots away, the marrow changes into a snake. All these creatures, however, derive their origin from something other than themselves. There is one living thing, a bird, which reproduces and regenerates itself without any outside aid. The Assyrians call it the phoenix. It lives not on corn or grasses, but on the gum of incense and the sap of balsam. When it has completed 5 centuries of life, it straightway builds a nest for itself, working with unsullied beak and claw, in the topmost branches of some swaying palm. Then, when it has laid a foundation of cassia, and smooth spikes of nard, chips of cinnamon bark, and yellow myrrh, it places itself on top, and ends its life amid the perfumes. Then, they say, a little phoenix is born anew from the father's body, fated to live a like number of years. When the nestling is old enough and strong enough to carry the weight, it lifts the heavy nest from the high branches, and like a dutiful son, carries its father's tomb, its own cradle, through the yielding air, till it reaches the city of the sun, where it lays its burden before the sacred doors, within Hyperion's temple. If there is anything strange or wonderful in such novelties, we may well wonder that the hyena can change its sex, the female that lately allowed the male to mount her, becoming now a male herself. Then there is the animal which lives on air and wind, and immediately assumes the color of whatever it touches. Conquered India gave his lynxes to Bacchus, god of the vine cluster. Men say that whenever these animals empty their bladders, the contents turn to stone, and harden in contact with the air. In the same way, coral, too, hardens as soon as air touches it, whereas under the water it was a waving plant. The day will end, and Phoebus sink his panting horses in the deep, before I can recount all the things that have been altered to a different shape. So we see times change, and some nations gain strength, while others sink into obscurity. Troy was great in wealth and men, and for 10 years could afford to lose so many lives in war. Now humbled to the dust, she can but point to her ancient ruins. Ancestral tombs are all her wealth. Sparta, too, was famous once. Once the great city of Mycenae flourished. Amphion's citadel prospered once, and that of Cecrops too. Now Sparta is a tract of worthless land. Lofty Mycenae has fallen. What but a name is Oedipus' city, Thebes? What remains of Pandion's Athens but a name? Even today, rumor has it that a Trojan city, Rome, is rising close to the river Tiber, that flows down from the Apennines, rising on foundations built to support a vast structure. This city, too, alters her form as she grows, and will one day be the capital of the wide world. This, they say, is what the prophets predict, that is foretold by the oracles that reveal the fates. So, too, as I remember, when Troy was tottering to her destruction, Elenus, son of Priam, comforted Aeneas, who was in tears and trembling for his safety. O goddess-born prince, if you note well what I prophesy, Troy will not utterly perish while you are safe. Fire and the sword will give way to you, and you will journey forth, bearing with you the rescued symbols of Pergamum, till you find a foreign field, more friendly than your own land to you and to your Troy. A city I see there, even now, intended for Troy's descendants, greater than any seen in the past, greater than any that now exists, or ever shall be. Other leaders will raise it to power through the long years, but one, born of the line of Julius, will make it mistress of the world. When the earth has enjoyed his presence, the realms of heaven will enjoy him too, and the sky will be his final destination. I remember well what Helenus prophesied such things to Aeneas, as that hero bore the Penates out of Troy, and it gladdens my heart that the walls of this city, descended from Troy, are rising now, that the Greek victory has been a good thing for the Trojans. But now, lest I should stray far from my course, and allow my horses to forget that they are making for a goal, I return to my theme. The heavens and everything that lies below them change their shape, as does the earth and all that it contains. We too, who are part of creation, since we are not merely bodies, but winged souls as well, can find a home in the forms of wild beasts, and be lodged in the breasts of cattle. Therefore, let us leave unmolested those bodies, which may contain the souls of our parents or of our brothers, or those of other relatives, or at least the souls of men. Let us not dishonor our kind, or cram our stomachs with feasts like that of Thyestes. What evil habits a man learns! How wickedly does he prepare himself to shed human blood, when he cuts open a calf's throat with his knife, and listens unmoved to its mournful lowing, when he can slay a kid that cries like a child, or feed on the birds which he himself has fed. How little short of full-fledged crimes are acts like these, and to what do they lead? Let the ox proceed with his plowing, or blame his death on advancing years. Let the sheep supply us with a defense against the biting north wind, and well-fed goats present their udders to be milked. Away with nets and snares, traps and cunning ruses, seize to trick birds with limed twigs, to make a sport of hunting stags with feather-decked cords, or hiding barbed hooks beneath your treacherous bait. Destroy creatures that harm you, but even in their case, be content to destroy. Do not let their flesh pass your lips. Live on some less barbarous diet. And that sums it up. and importance of understanding metamorphosis is expressed by the Latin poet